sunshiny day here in the city of Noblesville. We're ready for our second in a series of Mental Health Mondays, joined once again by my friend, a small business owner at Pathways to Healing here in Noblesville, Kristen Boice. Kristen, once again, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Mayor Jenson. I'm excited to be here with you today.
I'm excited as well. It's a good chance for us. We've kind of committed on a weekly basis to check in with everybody as we start talking about mental health in the city of Noblesville. We know how important that is during this very unique, maybe once in a lifetime time in our city, keeping everyone mentally strong here. Obviously, our health and your health and safety is our number one priority in the city of Noblesville. And as much as your physical health is important, your mental health is just as important. And we have made that commitment to you to have that honest conversation about it. And I appreciate Kristen for joining me. As always, if you have any questions or just want to say hi, type that in. We'd love to see who's watching. We know we've averaged well over 100 folks every week listening to us and sharing it. And I know well more are going back and rewatching this. So make sure you say hi to us. We'd love to hear from you as we continue this dialogue. So Kristen, to start out with, I know what you're going to have us do. So take it away.
Thank you so much. So the first thing we're going to do, this is our number one strategy to begin the processing of calming the body down. The first thing we're going to do is breathe. First, we know that the United States government, the US government has endorsed this technique. It's called square breathing. And I recommend you do this every hour, at least on the hour. Set a reminder to calm your nervous system down, calm your body down, and get centered so you can handle stress, so you can handle the feelings that come up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of create, they call it square breathing, because you're creating a square with your breath. So you're going to go in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. This is really important to get the full benefit of that breath, is that exhale through the mouth. So we're going to do it together. We're going to inhale for 4, we're going to hold for 4, and we're going to slowly release out the mouth, almost like you're cooling a cookie or cooling soup, for 8. And so we're going to do 2 together. And again, I recommend you're doing this on a regular basis. This is also a strategy to help children calm that nervous system down. If you're calm, they're going to be more calm. If you're not calm, they're not going to be calm. It is the key strategy in parenting. First, calm your nervous system down. Put your oxygen mask on first, then you can assist others. So let's work on this together. So we're going to feel your feet on the ground. So it's really important you're really rooted into the planting your feet onto the ground. And then we're going to inhale through our nose. Hold for 4. Exhale slowly out your mouth. And you're going to notice your body and check in with the differences already. You may even feel a little lightheaded because you're not used to taking that full breath. We're going to do one more. In through your nose. You would want to drop your shoulders on that out breath. And sometimes a sigh out is really important to let go of that tension and tightness in the body. So again, you're going to be doing this on a regular basis to calm that nervous system down and to be able to handle what comes your way.
Awesome. Well, I love it. And this is something that we have been instituting at our house, at the Jenson household, and it has worked wonders. I'm so glad this week, too, that you're actually on the screen with me, so I'm not breathing by myself like we did last week with a little awkward technical issue. So it's much better when I'm not just awkwardly breathing into the TV. So thank you, Kristen. And I got to say real quick, hi to so many people. Annie, Janie Justice, Patrick Probst, some people are chiming in. I know Lindsay Bennett, our city attorney, has 7-month-old twins, so I know that she's on and she's probably breathing big time at home right now to get herself in a calm space. So thank you, everyone, for joining again. Say hi as we go along here. So, all right, so we've hit breathing. That's job number 1. So let's talk a little bit about a recap for some advice. We're getting ready to go into another week of e-learning tomorrow. Parents are probably dreading that. I think kids sometimes are dreading it, especially on such a beautiful day. It's hard to get our head around what e-learning is looking like. So let's start with some advice, Kristen, for parents and grandparents. I know how that's important too. My mom is helping with my nephews on their e-learning and my brother as well. So advice for grandparents, for aunts, uncles, cousins, parents that are dealing with e-learning, top tips for them.
Okay, first thing is we know what I'm going to say. We're going to say the breath because you've got to calm your nervous system down. You've got to be regulated in order to be able to help your kid. Because if a child, this is my little brain model, and if we flip into fight, flight, or freeze, they're not going to be learning. This is where we're not learning. The prefrontal cortex, which is right here, it's the CEO of the brain. It's the one that takes it. It's the executive function that says, I can handle this. It's the rational, calm part of the brain. If we are not calm, our child isn't going to be calm and be able to learn well. So the first thing is you may just breathe and hopefully they pick up. That's the whole idea, that they pick up on what you're doing. So if nothing else, first breathe. Second of all, we have to acknowledge that this is different. This is different. They're trying to get into a new routine and using the computer. There's going to be technical frustration. So on the front end, I'm always acknowledging technology sometimes is hit or miss. So when we get kicked off of a Zoom call or the technology doesn't work, it can cause dysregulation for the parent and the kid, and the child can get very frustrated. And the first thing I do is one, breathe, and I say, I understand it's frustrating. Technology sometimes isn't reliable, and it's okay to get frustrated. And the first thing we have to do is breathe. It's not okay to name call, etc. You're going to say what's okay, what's not okay. Those are boundaries. What's okay, what's not okay. Explanation and communication is really important. Not preach and teach, where we go into lecture mode and we go into fix-it mode. We have to go into understanding and communicating. So let's talk through e-learning before e-learning starts. Let's talk through maybe some of the frustrations. Let's talk through the calendar. Let's talk through what you like and what you don't like, so we can have a conversation in order to have connection. This is one of the key things I'm working with parents on right now, is connection via communication. And if you're not connected to your emotions, you're not going to have connection with your kid. It's just not going to happen. So one of the things is normalizing emotions, normalizing this isn't how we normally learn, normalizing you miss your friends, normalizing some of the frustration this is. And again, we learn best when we're regulated, when the brain is calm, when we are calm. Are you always going to be calm? No. Let's be real. We're not always going to be calm. So I don't want people to go in shame, which says, I'm a bad parent. You're saying to be calm and I'm not calm. Of course, you're going to have frustrations. And I want you to acknowledge that that's normal and part of the process. When I get frustrated and I start flipping my lid. This is my lid flipping. I can feel it getting ready to flip. I have to go, okay. And I have to talk myself off the ledge because my kid's having a meltdown. My kid's having a fit. My teen doesn't want to do it. I have to go, okay, what are my expectations? We have to watch our expectations. Are they realistic? Are you in a perfectionistic mindset? Are you in I should or shouldn't do this and this is the time frame? What we know is flexibility right now is critical with e-learning. Communicate with the teachers. They're really understanding. They get it. They're also having their own, to learn and regulate themselves as they're trying to learn how to do this all virtually. Communicate with the teachers. If you're like, we couldn't, Johnny, no, not to pick on a Johnny because I love the Johnnies, but just for the sake of example, Johnny was having a meltdown today. We didn't get it done. Communicate. They're probably going to go, it's okay. Take a breath. You got this. It's okay. So communication, not only with your child proactively, also with the teacher. That's what they're there for. They get it. They understand. And we're in this together. Communication is vital. If we don't communicate, we're going to have meltdowns. So those are my number one kind of top tips here.
Well, that's awesome because I think as someone who's married to a teacher, I can tell you those teachers also have Johnnies at home that they're trying to get through e-learning with as well. So they get it, they understand it, but yeah, share it with them. I know it coming from my wife's perspective, share those thoughts, share those feedback. Even as an elected official, I always say, if I don't hear from you, I assume everything's all good. And I know for a fact, everything's not always good. So share that information with them. And I don't know about your household, but sometimes we get into, when we bring up a e-learning issue with my son, we get the instant shake and the whole like, I can't do it. And so it turns into this gradual who can be the loudest sometimes. So we've been trying to work through of reacting that on our parental side with calm, cool, collected response, which tends to help calm him down as well. So
yes. And
just a
taking
practical,
breaks.
yes.
Yes, taking
But
breaks.
it happens to everybody, even at the mayor's house. We kind of lose our stuff every once in a while. Totally get it. So, all right, let's transition a little bit to kids. I know there's some kids maybe listening, like Gunnar Reed, I know is listening right now. Some middle school kids, some high school kids. They're saying, Kristen, I hate e-learning. Give me some advice going into Tuesday, knowing that I've got to mentally prepare for that. What advice can you give some kids that are facing e-learning right now?
First of all, I see you. I get you. It's okay. I mean, you may not love this, and there's no shoulds or shouldn'ts right now. When we should on ourselves, we're shaming ourselves. Okay. So when the minute a should comes out of our mouth or a shouldn't, we're already in shame. So first of all, I see you, and it makes sense if you have some frustrations and if you don't like it. It's how do we handle and cope with it so you do get what needs to get done. So first of all, taking those breaths, acknowledging this isn't your favorite thing in the world, and that's okay, is number one. Number two is an organized space. Come up with a space. Space is huge. Think about space. Our homes are our space. Our yards are our space. Our offices are our space. The space is really important to teens and kids. Do you have a dedicated space for teens to do their e-learning? Do you have it where it's set up so it's comfortable? They like it. They've set it up. You have your own things around you, fiddle things. As you know, I'm big into fiddle things. So if you have a stress ball, you have something you can fiddle with while you're on the e-learning, that helps to be able to focus, actually. That helps your brain be able to get out of that fight, flight, or freeze and get into that executive function, that prefrontal cortex. So have fiddle things around you. Light a candle. Have things that pictures of your friends up. Have a space that you feel comfortable in and that it's conducive to you being able to focus and learn. So I really recommend individual spaces for everybody doing e-learning. And I know that's hard, even if it's in a closet. I mean, coming up with their own space is really important right now in order for them to feel like I'm ready. I can do this. Getting folders, organizing, whatever you have laying around the house, organizing that space so learning can take place in the best possible way.
That's awesome, because I like I said, I think my son has his little corner that he works in there, and that's very, very, very helpful information. So let's talk a little bit. There was a question, Kristen, about apps or websites for meditation for kids. Maybe some good suggestions you might have in the technology world if they're going to be on devices right now currently. Are there some apps or websites that you would recommend that they could go to help kind of clear their brain, get them through this?
I absolutely recommend two. Calm, the Calm, CALM app. They have meditations. They have sound. So sometimes getting a white noise on the phone can be very soothing, or a soothing sound that they like. Waterfalls. Now that might have to make you go to the bathroom, but they might find that soothing. That's a great one. Headspace is also another wonderful app. And RelaxM, RELAXM, has some meditations as well as sounds on there to kind of block out the noise, especially if they have headphones. Sometimes they need, if they're doing a paper or they're taking a test, and maybe you can't use headphones when you're taking a test, but having relaxed sounds is really calming to that nervous system. And then they can do the meditations on their own. YouTube also has some free meditations for teens and kids that you can get on there and type in meditations for kids, meditations for teens, and they can pick the ones they like. I always recommend letting them have a voice, letting them communicate to you what they like and what they don't like. Parents, oftentimes when children come with feelings and emotions, we try to fix it. I'm telling people, do come out with, well, have you tried this? Have you done that? I want them to process, how does that feel for you? Tell me more about that. Instead of offering solutions out of the gate, Let them process, let them come up with some ideas. And when they're really young, we are doing a little bit more of the troubleshooting. And when they get older, we want to teach them to process and problem solve on their own. That's really important. We don't try to fix everything as parents. We let them process so they can come up with possibilities and options for themselves.
That's great. Those are great tips for kids and for parents. Let's turn to a new topic. We said every week we want to kind of discuss some new content for folks to chew on, to think about as the week goes on. So there's a lot of talk right now about possibly reopening the economy at some point in time. Obviously, it's going to be done in a very calculated, safe measure with public health officials' feedback and guidance. But I think when people start to think about that, instantly there are some folks that are getting fearful of what that new normal looks like for them. So let's talk about fear. You talk about fear in context right now. So let's specifically talk a little bit about fear, what that looks like in individuals, and maybe some advice on specifically tackling that fear that might be within inside you right now.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge that we all have fear. It's a core emotion that we're all given, that we all have. So no one gets out of the category for free. It's very hard. We've done a lot of things to try to mitigate the fear because fear lives in our body. So we might even acknowledge in our body, we might be short of breath. We might have shoulder pain. Our chest might get tight. We might have stomach pains. We might feel tightness all the way through our body. We know that the emotions live in the body, and so does fear. So the first thing is recognizing, where does that live in your body? Second is, no one gets out of this category for free. We all have fear. It's a part of being a human being. And of course, we're going to have fear about going out into the world when the situation is, the reality is the reality. And so it's important that you can make decisions that are going to be the best interest for you and your family. So some people have to go out and they have to figure out, how do I cope with that? The breathing, taking safety precautions. The other piece is, if you don't feel comfortable going out, it's okay to make that choice for yourself. Employers now are going to have different conversations with people, and that's part of what's going to have to take place is communication, checking in, and acknowledging that fear is going to be part of this process. The next part of it is we really need to get honest about how we're dealing with the fear. We've learned a lot of ways to move away from fear. We've learned a lot of ways to mitigate fear, and we may be drinking more now. I'm guessing a lot of us have been in the pantry going, oh, look at this. And we're eating more than we normally do. We might be gambling. We might be online more, doing things that we normally don't do. We might be on social media for hours and hours at a time. We might be binging on Netflix. And what we want to notice is, how much has that increased and how much are we using that to try to mitigate the fear instead of tending to the fear. And tending to it means acknowledging it, processing it. So we have to talk through it. We have to write it out. We need to maybe get some help professionally. We need to be able to have a safe place to deal with it, acknowledge it, and process through it to get to the other side. It's important that we're not moving away from it. And what we've done is we've tried to move away from, we've come up with many different ways to stuff it down and numb it out. And this isn't the time. This is actually the time to tend to it, to watch our thoughts connected to that fear. Am I going to worst case scenario in order to try to mitigate the fear? How am I moving through it? And what we know about trauma, and this is really important, that if we do not mobilize those emotions, it will get stuck and frozen in the body. And that becomes what we call post-traumatic stress disorder. Not everybody's going to have that. But if we do not mobilize, if we do not move through that fear in a healthy way, we will get stuck in it. And that is what we call looping. We get into the looping. We feel shut down. We feel like we have no hope. And in order to create more hope, it's dealing with the fear and acknowledging it. Let's have conversations around it. Let's not pretend anymore. Let's talk through it. Let's actually move through it as a culture to get through it. And what we know is when we get stress, we can go and we can regress. So if we don't deal with the stress in a healthy way, we're going to regress. and we'll see our kids maybe going back to things that they normally don't do. They start regressing. Don't get scared. We know that there's probably they don't know how to cope. They don't know how to deal with it. And the more we deal with it as adults, as parents, as grandparents, the more we're going to be able to help our children, the more we're going to be able to help our neighbor, the more we're going to be able to help our friends. If I'm not dealing with it, I can't help anybody else because I'm stuck. There's no shame in that. It's to deal with it with compassion and empathy for ourselves and for other people. That's how we work through that.
I love that term faith over fear that you talk about. That's something that I'm going to take away from this conversation this morning. I love that term faith over fear. Let's talk a little bit about kind of some warning signs. You kind of touched on them under the fear category. Last week, we talked about how to have a conversation with our spouse, our kids, our neighbors, our fellow parishioners, our coworkers, whatever that may be. Let's back that step up even one and talk about warning signs. You mentioned it in terms of, alcohol consumption, food. I know personally at my house, I have discovered chocolate cinnamon toast crunch. I had no idea they made that in a chocolate flavor. They do. And there's no reason why I need to be eating as much chocolate cinnamon toast crunch. I don't even eat cereal normally, but I have, because we're coping with it in different ways, right? So let's be honest, not to make light of it, but truly there are different things that we're using to cope. So let's talk a little bit about those warning signs that we can identify in ourselves or in others.
So a couple things. One is our sleep patterns. That's huge. If I'm not sleeping, if I'm kind of staying up without sleeping, or I'm sleeping too much, those are things we need to be noticing. In terms of depression, am I functioning? Am I not getting out of bed for days and days? Am I not showering? My self-care decreases. Am I not eating, or am I eating too much? Some people have lost their appetite and they're not eating. So the self-care starts to decrease. We could see high levels of, in terms of coping, we're increased alcohol usage. That right now, online gambling, we're seeing a high number of that. Increased anger and violence. These are warning signs that we're not handling the stress. We're not dealing with the emotions. We're not handling the grief. These are things that we need to tend to and start having conversations about. Those are definitely warning signs. High reactivity. So something that normally you'd be like, oh, you could let it roll off your shoulders, and you're getting highly reactive. You're dysregulated to a degree that's really impacting your family and other people. So your reactivity is significantly higher. One of the things we're noticing right now is alcohol. We all post, a lot of people post, oh, I'm having wine. And so people start to feel like that's a normal way. Not that there's anything wrong with wine. Again, I think of everything on a continuum. Have you upticked your alcohol usage? And that's a hard one to break. It's a hard one because what happens is our brain gets in a habitual pattern. And so we want to watch, how are you using external things to deal with what's on the inside internally? Are you dealing with what's on the inside or not? So coping mechanisms. If you're going back to old ways that you've coped and you're like, hey, I was doing so well before this, and now I'm back on eating sugar nonstop, or whatever the thing is, that we all have something we use to numb. It's how on a continuum are you out of alignment? Have you upticked your social media usage? Have you upticked, your online usage? We need to watch those things. Those are signs and signals that we need to be dealing with what's on the inside.
Great. Well, as we transition here to wrap up kind of our edition of Mental Health Mondays, again, if you're watching and have a question, feel free to send that over to us. We'll answer it here in live time. But Kristen, can you give some tips or some resources if people are in a bad spot right now, if they know their spouse is in a bad spot right now? Obviously, if this is an emergency, 911, we stand ready. Our first responders are ready to tackle these mental health issues. We launched a new program called Noble Act, focused on mental health issues. So we're ready to handle that. But if it's not a 911 emergency, what resources are here in the community right now that folks can reach out to?
The good news is we have so many resources, and please, it's vulnerable to ask for help. please don't be shy about asking for help. This is not the time to kind of say, I got this on my own. There is so many resources right now to help you. The first one is Prevail. They are local here in Noblesville. They have a 24-hour crisis line that's for domestic violence, emotional abuse, and their phone number is 317-776-3472. We have the Suicide Prevention Lifeline and that number. And these people are wonderful. They're trained at this. They are here to help you. It's 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. We have the Disaster Distress Helpline, and that's 800-985-5990. And then text, you're going to text Talk With Us at 66746. That's text Talk With Us at 66746. The last one is the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and that's 800-799-7233. And for those that are struggling with addiction, we know Fairbanks is still open. That's right outside Community North. We have Community North. If you have any mental health issues, they are open for if you need inpatient. So please don't be shy about reaching out to them. And there's a lot of free online 12-step groups. If you're struggling with any kind of opiate addiction, alcohol addiction, food addiction, codependency, get online. There's tons of free resources. Please don't be shy about asking for help. And then on top of that, there's therapists that are doing telehealth that are here to help you. So just know you're not alone and reach out for help.
Well, and I know that right after this, you're jumping on another Facebook Live on Pathways to Healing's website as well on the Facebook page. So I know you are busy talking with folks across the city, across the state, really, that are digging deep right now. And I just want to encourage us as a community to remember, that we are all in this together. I know that's maybe a cheesy line at times, but it's true. Let's continue to fight to erase that stigma. Let's be open and honest with one another. I'm going to be here every week during this time. Kristen's going to join me. We're going to be open. We're going to be honest. We're going to be sharing. I'll share my thoughts. I sometimes am too open, my wife tells me, but I'm going to just continue to share what I'm feeling these days, because we're all human, right? And we're all in this together. So Kristen, thank you so much. I would encourage anyone listening today, anyone in the city, go out on your front porch right now and take a breath, because it's a beautiful day. The sun came up and the sun is shining. It's a great day in our city. We are all in this together. We are going to get through this together, and we're going to see you back here next Monday at 11 o'clock for our Mental Health Monday. But in the meantime, stay safe. Kristen, thank you so much for all that you do, not only for our community, but for others beyond our community as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Jenson. I appreciate your leadership and you starting this imperative conversation right now.
Awesome. All right. Well, enjoy your Monday, and we will see you all back here next Monday. Thanks so much.
Thank you.